Kingston Community Radio on WGHQ Kingston. On your radio at 920 AM and 92.5 FM. And also online at mykcr.org.
Hi, I'm Kelsey Grammer. Wounded Warrior Project supports injured veterans by connecting them with fellow warriors, by serving them through mental health and wellness programs, and by empowering them to live on their own terms. No one should face a battle alone. Join us at woundedwarriorproject.org.
Around any bend in any road, any time of the day or night, Central Hudson crews can be found working in the Hudson Valley, from Montgomery to Millerton, Freehold to Fishkill, and many points in between. We mark our work zones for safety's sake. As a driver, you can do your part too. Slow down, pay attention, put down the phone, and obey the flaggers. Be prepared to stop and maintain a safe distance from the vehicle in front of you. Safety matters.
We all come together and stand together to serve our veterans. We invest in the latest technology.
We take the time to train the next generation of doctors and nurses. We work together to make sure we heal their bodies and their minds.
This is our mission. More than 300,000 of us working as one, together with families and loved ones. No matter where they live in this country, we'll be there.
We stand strong, united. Stand with us in caring for our veterans.
Hi, this is Winnie from the Rosendale Seniors, and I support Kingston Community Radio, and so should you.
This portion of Kingston Community Radio is brought to you by Ulster Savings Bank. Visit their newest branch, conveniently located at the Ulster Commons Plaza in Lake Katrine. Experience the difference that local community banking offers with the convenience of another great location, easy access, plenty of parking, and a 24-hour ATM. Ulster Savings Bank, invested in community, invested in you. Member FDIC.
Okay, let's go, Brandon.
Boom.
That means it's time to start.
All right.
That's how I start off these days. Let's go, Brandon.
Oh, that's a reference to Biden, isn't it?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. But since I can't say other things, I'm allowed to say that, and I won't get kicked off YouTube for doing it. So
let's go.
All right. Let's go, Brandon. It is.
Hey, Brandon listens to the show, so watch your language.
Well, if he's probably napping right now, Hugh.
We want to keep you on YouTube, so just behave.
We got Ustream ready to go just in case they boot us again. So we're not playing games this time.
Be ready.
We are ready.
All right.
Good morning, guys.
We're ready. Good
morning, Maxwell.
Lawrence Maxwell, thank you for the introduction. Which one of us is Brandon? No, I'm only,
neither. Hopefully,
I'm only teasing.
You're the older one.
Anyway, good morning. Think we should probably mention that this is Easter weekend for those who practice the Christian faith. Hope they have a joyous Easter. And for those of our friends who are of the Jewish faith, today is the beginning of Passover. Mm-hmm. So I hope they enjoy their seders this evening, and probably tomorrow evening for a few days after that. I've been very fortunate, to be invited to some of those, and they're really they're really great. They're really great.
It is.
So,
yeah.
Anyway, it's a great time of year. The weather's been great, and for those of us with the political inclinations, this has been like a feast. This has been a smorgasbord of
material.
Dumb politicians doing even dumber things. So let's see. I'm just going to pull one out of the hat this morning because there's so much going on. But let's talk just for a moment about the former short-lived lieutenant governor.
What was his name again?
His name was Benjamin, his first name. I can't remember his first name. His last name. Brian Benjamin. Brian Benjamin from Democrat from Harlem.
State senator.
That's synonymous, by the way. Democrat from Harlem.
It's actually redundant. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't even think that there's a Republican in Harlem. So But in any event, I think we must thank the people of Harlem for sending us this guy. Thank you, folks, for electing this man to office.
I thought Hochul appointed. In the beginning, you're saying, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he was a state senator, prominent state senator.
Hey, I mean, they elected AOC. That just goes to show you.
More the Bronx, I think, with AOC in Queens.
Yeah.
She's not from Harlem.
No,
yeah,
she's not.
and the thing, the crazy thing about it was, and just for the record, he got into trouble trying to manipulate the
allegedly he's
trying to allegedly manipulate the candidate finance laws. So the good government types are always telling us, let's get money out of politics. Let's go to public financing. So New York City has public financing, and what do you get? You get a Benjamin who comes along and decides, well, you know what? I'm going to work this system, and I'm going to play this system, and tries, even in the face of what is portrayed as good government, this guy, decides to manipulate and grab an extra $400,000 in campaign contributions illegally, according to the attorney for the Southern District of New York. So he then, because he fits the mold, so we got Kathy Hochul is going to now ascend to the governorship. Everybody in town, including me, thinks she's going to get primaried by Letitia James. I mean, that was the prevailing opinion at the time. So
and Letitia James had broad support.
Oh, bro! Oh, shit! Are you kidding? She came down here.
Yeah,
and they had a red carpet from the thruway exit right up to Wilwick. I mean, come on! You should have seen it. It was, it was wide as the street, and there was a lot of genuflecting and bowing and picture taking,
scraping, bowing,
and they didn't even invite Hochul to the event. It was like, Hochul, who's she? Let's get the next governor in here, and this was going on, and so Kathy Hochul, in her infinite wisdom, decides, you know what, I need to short circuit this act. So she, in very similar fashion to the president and various other Democratic politicians in Washington, she decides that we have to make this about race, so to speak, by let me find someone who is of African American ancestry and a prominent politician, and I'll put that person on my ticket so that we can get rid of any attempt, to get rid of me on a basis, on a racial basis.
Yeah.
So she, she does her homework.
No, she didn't.
Yeah, she thought somebody did her homework. I guess this guy was recommended by some folks down below, and she was listening. She had a very keen ear to what was going on in New York City because that was her weakness. New York City was her weakness, and so she had to bring somebody up from the city to balance the ticket. She's from Buffalo, and let's get let's get a broad-based administration with some African American folks and some Hispanics and this and that, and I want to be governor of everybody. But I don't know how they vetted the guy.
Not very well, in fact.
Oh.
What I read was that her chief of staff, who has gone over to the campaign side, so he'd be a former chief of staff, was in charge of, he came back in-house, as it were. I mean, this was a political decision.
Oh, yeah.
So, as you described, and there's nothing really, not nothing, but there's nothing wrong with political decisions by self-interested politicians. But They really didn't. As I said, there were a few yellow flags that were flying about this guy. There was rumors around Harlem that he was, because the FBI just didn't call in him; they called in other people to testify, and people know by now that if you lied to the FBI, it's a felony. And so the word was getting around that maybe we might have a problem with this guy, but there was a as you indicated, there was a time factor. They wanted to get this candidate in place as quickly as possible and damn the torpedoes.
Yeah, and short circuit Letitia James, which by the way they successfully did.
She bailed almost immediately after that. One aspect that we haven't talked about and I haven't written about this whole process of when you have vacancies, how they're filled. In this case, a governor who was never elected gets to choose a lieutenant governor who was never elected to the position with no oversight from the people who are elected, which is the legislature. I wonder if they'll circle back on that in light of this scandal and have either the Senate, like we do in Washington, either the Senate or the Assembly pass judgment on whatever candidate she recommends. This guy was on the ballot. He had to go through any kind of process. She just said, "This is my guy," and everybody lined up. I don't think that's a good system. Not because it turned out badly, but I think in terms of procedure, I don't think it's a good system.
Now, there's some interesting talk also. I don't know if you've managed to catch any of that, but this guy's on the primary ballot.
Yeah, they apparently can't get him off.
I'm pretty sure they're already printed, and I don't know what they do now, how they get him off. Somebody said, well, we can probably get him off if we give him, they did the old offer him a judgeship routine.
Yeah.
Who's going to offer this guy a judgeship?
That's good.
I mean, seriously.
Seriously, he's serious.
Where are they going to find? I mean, I don't know. I have no idea. Of course, I'm not an election lawyer, but I have no idea how
they get him off the ballot. I think there's two choices. They can offer him a judgeship, which is hilarious, or he can run for some other office, and then just relinquish that appointment. It wasn't really.
He could probably run for state senate in Harlem
easily
and win. Yeah. Oh, landslide.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think we should remind the folks who are listening, this is the Me and Mario show, as you call it. You Reynolds, Mario Catalano, discussing politics. We do this every other Friday.
Let's explain how I came up with that name.
I think it's appropriate.
Yes, it's appropriate because the genesis of this joke, really, of the name, is that back in the day, way back in the day now, Alan Chartock, who was a political science professor at New Paltz, developed a relationship with Mario Cuomo, and he got, was it AMC, is his radio station? He brought Cuomo on several times, and Cuomo was always available to go on the radio.
Yeah, Alan was dipping into a whole bunch of different, he was getting paid by the radio station, by the college, and, who knows, doing a syndicated column. I mean, this guy had, had more revenue streams than Elon Musk.
And anyway, the name of their program, naturally, because of Mario, was Mario and Me.
Yeah.
So, you tell the story sometimes about the first time you met Mario Cuomo. It was at maybe some dental gathering, and people being introduced around the table. And when you came and you introduced yourself, and you had the same first name, and that that kind of lit him up. That there was a
he was very, very, very friendly. I actually, accidentally got into a meeting, it was very interesting. I had an appointment. At the time, I was the political action chairman of the New York State Dental Association, and I had made an appointment, which they graciously granted.
With the governor's office?
With the governor's office. And I didn't know who I was going to speak to, but there were some issues that we wanted to discuss, and, before the budget, and Anyway, and Cuomo was in a meeting, rather large meeting room with a group of people. And so I got there, and I said to the secretary, I have a meeting to attend, and she said, "Oh yeah, the meeting started. Here, let me take you in." So she takes me into this room and sits me at the table. Now, this is a strategy session, and no one in the room knows who I am. I don't know one person in the place.
Except the governor.
Except there's the governor sitting at the head of the table, and I'm sitting there, and they don't want to insult me by asking me who I am, because
you could be somebody.
I could be a major donor, right? And so nobody is saying anything. I am sitting there like an idiot, and they are talking about rental laws in New York City. And it was kind of interesting because I developed a tremendous amount of respect after that meeting for the governor, because his cronies, his group, his inside group, they were trying to figure out a way to finagle something. I don't remember the exact issue. They were they kept throwing stuff. Listen, maybe if we do it this way and we can sneak this in. And, I heard the word sneak and
lie and steal.
All kinds of stuff. And this guy, he sits there and he tolerates all this conversation back and forth. No, I think we ought to do this. And he finally says,
does Cuomo participate much in this, or just listen?
Mostly he listened.
Yeah.
And then at the conclusion, he said, "Okay, here's the deal. We're going to do the right thing." And he said, "And we're not going to do any of this. And I want you to do this, this, and that." And the meeting was over. So now everybody gets up to leave.
They still don't know who you are. Now, did you ever say a word during this?
Not a word. I just sat there and I'm listening, because at the time I was about 32 or 33 years old.
Young guy, yeah.
My knees were knocking on, But anyway, so finally everybody gets up to leave, and I'm like befuddled because I'm supposed to have a meeting. So somebody, I think it must have been his chief of staff, says to me, "Yeah, and the meeting's over." And I'm like, "Yeah, well, I didn't come to that meeting." "Well, who are you?" I tell him who I am. "Oh, my God, you're in the next meeting." So he introduced me to Cuomo. That's, yeah, and I told him my father was a big fan of his and whatnot, But that was it. That was funny. Okay, so we have a caller. Good morning, caller. Welcome to Kingston Community Radio.
Hey, good morning, gentlemen. Good morning. What a great show already, and
we got a lot more.
We got a lot more. I'm looking forward, and I love that story you just shared. Yeah, I love the story you just shared. That was fantastic.
Did you enjoy our description of the Crook of the Month Club up there in Albany?
I did. I appreciate it so much. Appreciate it. And so, in the name of crooks. So, here's my question for the opening segment. Now, Hochul here, of course, was the former Governor Cuomo, who had to resign, lieutenant governor. And her claim to fame is, "I know nothing. I knew nothing. I know nothing. I was in Buffalo. I was in Plattsburgh. I wasn't in Albany," right?
Yeah.
Okay. And folks need to believe that. Okay.
She now here
nothing. She chose this fella, right? And her claim is, I do nothing.
Oh, I knew nothing.
My question for you, gentlemen, is, does this second stance of I know nothing, do you think that she can somehow step beyond this and sail beyond this and still maintain? Do you think this is really going to draw up more questions about her? Most people didn't know who she was. At least I didn't, ever. And so is how much does this scandal here, can it really affect her? Or do you think she can somehow move beyond this, pick a new person, and maintain something? What do you think? Is this going to have a long-term impact, or is it just of the moment?
Listen, the short answer, caller, is yes, and have a nice day. No, there's some other context. Sometimes Mario and me play devil's advocate here. There is some context here. She was pretty much ostracized and marginalized by Andrew Cuomo, during her last term. He actually tried to get her off the ticket 4 years ago, and she had built up a base of support going around the county, mostly ceremonial stuff, but she met a lot of people, and she's an outgoing, friendly type of person that Andrew Cuomo wasn't. And she fought that within the system, and he was forced to keep her on the ballot.
He relented, but he didn't speak to her then.
Yeah. So the typical of Cuomo, he just cut her off. The other side of the equation is, it's not a good idea to go around telling the voters you know nothing, or in this case, you knew nothing. She comes across as a bit of a lightweight. She can't. There were a number of positive aspects of Cuomo's time in office that she might have been able to speak to and say, "I was a teammate, and he conferred with me, et cetera, et cetera." That's pretty much gone, and so she can't build on Cuomo's more positive legacy in her effort to avoid the obvious. And she gets called a lightweight more often than not, particularly the way this budget was handled. We haven't talked about that yet, Mario, but this could be a segue into that. So I think it's a balance. I don't think it's 60-40. It's probably a little closer than that, but like in most things political and in life, there are variations. There's pros and cons.
Yeah, now I think she's coming across as a bumbler.
Well, yeah, exactly.
So you got, I know nothing. I can understand the I know nothing thing because the whole world knew that he wasn't even speaking to her. She never attended any of these meetings, and no one could point a finger at her and say, "Oh, she sat in on that strategy session on what to do with that woman who, nothing." She really did know nothing. But you're right, I think, in that even if you know nothing, don't walk around talking about it, because then it denigrates your capability to run the state. And as I look at this now and realize her first big task, her first major task, was to find a lieutenant governor.
How'd that work out?
And she screwed that up completely. So this doesn't speak well of her capabilities, number one. And then I think there's a massive unknown. What some people are predicting as a tsunami of angry voters out there. And even in New York, I can tell you just from my daily interactions with patients and whatnot, people are really, really angry. Now, I will tell you, I went yesterday and gassed up my car, and it was $100. I stopped it at $100. I probably could have put in another few maybe another $10 because I have a 25-gallon tank.
$10 only get you 2 gallons.
I'm paying $5 a gallon.
Yeah.
And I needed to, I stopped it at 20 gallons, but I probably could have taken 21 maybe. But the point is, $100 to fill up your tank. I mean, this is when I drove out of that gas station, I was torqued. And I can imagine that just about everybody under the same set of circumstances. I go to Hannaford the other day. I buy 2 or 3 items, and the bill's like $23. And the woman says to me, "Oh, it's only $23, you know?" She said, "Nobody gets out of here for like less than $50 anymore." I'm like, hello?
Yeah.
I mean, come on. Butter and milk and, $23. Everything is just, I mean, a head of lettuce is $2. And it's just nonstop. No matter where you go or what you do, somebody is picking your pocket. And I don't know how that's going to play out. But
Caller, are you still there?
Yes, and he has one more question.
And actually,
go ahead.
Thank you. My part 2 question, and thank you for speaking to what you just spoke about. Thank you for that. In this moment, the New York State budget is not passed yet, correct? And
no, it is passed, caller. It is passed.
Oh, it did pass.
Yeah.
Okay, so my question is more generally then, do you think this blunder how do you think this blunder is affecting her in this moment? If she just lost some negotiation weight here with whatever might be going on we don't know about, do you think this blunder could really be undermining something? Is she going to give in to some things, or she can't get some things done in the very near future, say the next month, because of this blunder? That's my second question. I thought maybe the budget might get impacted, but okay, thank you.
What do you think? I think short term it hurts. I mean, there's an editorial in the Wall Street Journal, which is, I would say, conservative to moderate newspaper, but widely respected for its objective coverage of news. There's very few newspapers where you can read both sides of a story anymore.
Exactly.
And this is an editorial that Kathy Hochul came into office as a fresh new face, as it were, and their headlines is on the budget. It's Albany as usual for Kathy Hochul.
Oh, yeah. Albany will bring you to your knees. There's no. Don't even bother to go up there and think that you're going to have any effect. We got this woman who's challenging Assemblyman Cahill. She's got stars in her eyes. She had no clue. She's going to get up there, and her office is going to look like
it'll be a broom closet.
Restroom. Because they're not putting up with that kind of stuff. There are 3 people up there that run the show, and it's going to stay that way. And don't even think about any reforms. We've never been able, at least in my lifetime, to successfully pass a constitutional amendment. All right, most states have an active process. The Constitution is a dynamic document. Not around here. Every time we try and formulate a constitutional convention, we can't get it done because we are owned lock, stock, and barrel by private interest groups. And
special interest groups.
Special interest groups, and they can say anything they want. Oh, they rag about, the special interest groups, those terrible people, this and this, and they're owned by them. And, occasionally they're allowed to speak out about them, but essentially owned by them. And, it's very discouraging when you see that. And I was on the inside of that process. I was a special interest group. I can tell you some stories, but I won't. Some of those people are still alive. A couple of them are in jail, as a matter of fact. And that's
these are your people.
No, I'm talking about the people I dealt with up there, right? Senator Bruno and
Bruno has passed now.
And
Dean Skelos, etc.
And
Yeah.
Skelos, I had Skelos as the speaker at the Republican dinner down
I
there.
know.
Of course,
I talked
he
to
has
him.
a home in Lomontville, I believe, or somewhere out in Shokan. He had a weekend residence, and he was very familiar with Ulster County, and he loved Ulster County, so I brought him in as a speaker when I was chairman, and we had a very nice conversation. But I dealt with those people on a different level, okay? And many of them, unfortunately, wound up in jail, or indicted, or resigned, or whatever.
You know, as a sidebar, what I find interesting is that the people who do go to jail or may go to jail, like this Senator Benjamin, they're brought to justice not by the state legislature or any ethics committee or anything like that. It's the FBI that nails these guys.
Yeah, because there's no internal mechanism.
Yeah.
You know.
Nor do they want one.
No. Well, you can see that they're still fighting over the ethics commission that we're supposed to have in New York State, but that commission is appointed by the people that it's supposed to
oversee.
And you know. Yeah. So what kind of a deal is that? Only in New York could we have a cockamamie arrangement where the fox is guarding the hen house. You know, let's put my brother-in-law on this thing because he knows how to take care of business for us, and it's terrible. And again, like I said, unless we have a constitutional convention and change this, it's going to be the same old three folks. The only thing that changes is their prison uniforms. they show up with different types of. Yeah, I'm thinking of going to jail, but I'm gonna try and get to a federal prison, and when they catch me, And,
over in Danbury, it's a country club.
And they're in there negotiating, and it's scandalous. It's scandalous, but it's New York, and we're the laughing stock of the nation. We put up with more crap here than at probably any other state anywhere, but you never know it by talking to our elected officials. They come in here and they are and by the way, that's if we can talk to our elected officials.
Not always the case.
Yeah, I mean they don't necessarily like to talk to us anyway. They want to do govern by press release, and that's cool. That's cool. So all right, so we covered the Crook of the Month Club. Let's go to something more local, if you don't mind. All right, and I know that you wrote a little something about the Artists Association of Kingston, or Artist Society of Kingston, the Art Society.
Yeah, ASK.
I was a little astounded, okay, because it said in the article that was written that they had $500,000 in assets and a budget of $160,000 or $170,000 a year. So it sounds to me like a pretty vibrant organization,
Mm-hmm.
and all of a sudden, the chairman of the board or whatever she is, this Jamie, what's her name, Sannon?
Mm-hmm.
Jamie Sannon, gets into a shouting match or something, or some sort of a disagreement, and the entire board resigns. And essentially, this was instigated by her, but of course it's hard to find out exactly what went on here. But she wants to have people under the age of 35 and people who rent and don't own be on the board. How does a person who rents, how do they become a more valuable board member for an arts association? Well, I mean, what's going on here? Is this one of these woke deals?
Yeah, I think it is, but I think renters pay taxes. I mean, you've been a landlord. I've been a landlord. They do it indirectly. I'm not defending this at all. I think this is really discriminatory, and toward one side of the ledger, toward a whole different board of directors, a whole different constituency. You mentioned woke. Perhaps that's a four-letter word to describe it. They don't want older people. I mean, they don't want property owners. It used to be that politicians discriminated against renters because they didn't have a stake in the community. They weren't property owners. That'll just change the whole thing. That excluding, I would say, half the population of Kingston. Kingston's an old town, by the way. Kingston the median age in Kingston is close to 45. It's one of the oldest in the state.
But my confusion is, how do they become more valuable members of an arts association? It would seem to me that an arts association would best be served by artists, by whether you rent or own. You're an artist, and you have an interest in the arts and promoting the arts and improving the arts scene in Kingston. And I don't know why a renter would be more preferable, or a person under 35 would be more preferable as a contributor. That's what I don't understand.
Well, perhaps they're looking for what amounts to youthful energy.
Well, fine, but then put one person or two people under the age of 35 on the board, spread it out, say, maybe the board should be more diverse, maybe the board should be more diverse age-wise, however you want to do it, but to get rid of an entire board and say, I'm going to pack this board, and by the way, they're only getting 1-year appointments, and at the end of the year, after they pass everything she wants, apparently, then she's going to get rid of this crew and bring in a board that's more stable. And I
don't understand
somebody needs to get their hands on the bylaws of this.
Yeah, that's where I'm going. I've been on boards, you've been on boards. I've never seen a board operate like this. And there are disagreements. In the old days, there were healthy disagreements. You could talk to a board member and come to an agreement. Now
Now you get canceled.
Yeah, now you get canceled. People get locked into their respective positions.
In this case, you get spray painted.
But let's move to that in a minute. But I don't see how one person on the board, even Pete Savago, who was the oligarch of his time, when he had amazing control over the county legislature, when he was a legislator, he was chairman, he would say, hey, I'm only one vote. I've got to convince, of course he had them in his pocket, but I have to convince 17 other people back in the day when they had 33 to vote with me. This is one person setting up a system that is designed to be eliminated within a year. I think she'd be fortunate to find 12, however, it sounds like 12 angry men. She'd be fortunate given the volunteer pool of who's out there. This is very restrictive. You have to find people who agree with you to begin with. That's a stretch. All of them under 35, who probably with children have a lot better things to do than sit around board meetings. They have to get these people to agree, and then to agree to step down, and then go out and find 12 more, etc. From this fairly shallow pool. The other thing about the spray paint, I toyed with this, using this in my column.
Well, let's give the background here.
Go ahead, give the background.
The executive director we're talking about, this Jamie Sannon, was the same person who I believe was arrested.
Yes.
For
charged.
Or whatever, for spray painting graffiti at City Hall
in protest
of a vote on
an armored car for Kingston.
On buying the armored car or sharing an armored car with the town of Ulster.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure that she's the most stable person in the world, and the demanding. And again, honestly, if I was on the board, I never would have resigned. Stay there and make her life miserable if you disagree with her. But why are you letting this one individual chase all of you folks off the board? I mean, that's crazy.
Well, we are regressing somewhat here. We're talking about the spray paint, and I would say in jest that, well, she is some kind of an artist.
She's a graffiti artist.
There's graffiti art, and they say you can't fight City Hall, but you can spray it. I'm appalled. Quite frankly, I'm appalled by that. Anybody, protest is central to our democracy, but the notion somebody goes in with a can of spray paint in City Hall itself, I mean, we certainly got our attention.
And does all that damage, and the taxpayers are going to pay to clean it up. She actually should have been removed from the Ask board just for doing that. I mean, what kind of a nutty organization is this? So anyway, so in keeping with our focus here on the management of the wasteful management of the Ask organization.
Oh, Ask. Okay, I thought you were going another direction.
I am. Okay. So, keeping with it, I'd like to revisit the sludge situation in the city. I understand from your column that we paid, or the city paid, something like $700,000 or $800,000.
Close to 800,000.
Yeah. Can you? I know you did some investigating on this. Can you elaborate just a bit on why the city would have had a bill for services that apparently were never rendered?
Well,
almost to the tune of $1 million.
When they get done with the legal fees and things, I picked this story up. It was kind of what I called a journalistic curiosity. I read it with some interest. There was a couple of versions, a couple of installments in the Daily Freeman on this story. One, typically a Common Council committee studies the subject. In this case, the almost $800,000 judgment against the city, and for a quote-unquote breach of contract. And so I looked at it and read it again. I said, I'm missing something here. Yeah. What was the nature of the breach of contract that cost $800,000?
Now, you would have thought the Freeman might have asked that question.
Yeah, kind of central to the whole story. And twice it ran. It ran in a committee story, which was basically repeated with the vote. When the full council, who never asked a question on the floor.
Yeah.
Now, let's bring the aldermen into this. There are representatives, and they're writing a check for $800,000.
Sweep this under the rug.
Yeah, keep this quiet.
We don't want anybody to know how damn dumb we are.
So I rang up. Rang up Mayor Noble, who signed off on this legislation, and I asked him for the background. How do we come to this pass? And I had written, because I've been around so long, I wrote about this procedure when Mayor Satile was touting it back in the early aughts, early in his terms, and it sounded like a good idea. Yeah. They were taking a product. And I think they got frozen out by the RRA, so that there was some pressure on them. The RRA didn't want to take their sludge anymore. So this company, a nearby company, I think it was across the river, they had this process for turning sludge, which is a
Poop the produce.
That's the word, poop the produce, to turning the sludge into fertilizer.
Yeah, exactly.
And they created these pellets. Essentially what they do with the effluent is they dry it out, and then you have sludge. Yeah. But then what do you do with that? Well, you got to figure.
Yeah, they clean it up too, I think.
They steam it up and this and that. I don't want to get into too many details here, Mario.
No, it's too early in the morning.
People are creating sludge as we speak, but. In any case, this is going to be a joke. In any case, this company came up with, offered this process where they would convert it into pellets. So it was promoted as potentially a money-saving process and environmentally positive, because you'd be growing vegetables or whatever with this. The problem was that according to the city's complaint, was that the process, the operation didn't work very well. It was down during a period before it was a long period they had it. They about 10 years it would appear that they had this thing in operation, but it was breaking down all the time. A lot of the time, there were, I think, 700 or 800 days that it wasn't operational, and that the city, under its contract, was responsible for paying for repairs too. But the key to it was that they had amounted to what a no
cancellation
clause in their contract. They signed this thing against the wishes, as the mayor informed me, Mayor Noble informed me. He didn't pass judgment on that. He just signed the thing. Signed the bill that just came to his desk.
He stuck with the bill.
Yeah,
somebody else had the banquet, and they sent him the check.
Yeah, the last guy out the door handed you the check. But he said that the corporation counsel at the time, whose name escapes me, under when it was signed, was advised them, this is not in the city's interest. If something goes south here, we're stuck with this whole thing. And something went south. The city canceled the contract, which was not cancelable. What's the word?
You can't cancel.
You can't cancel this thing. You signed it. There's your signature on it. The judges, it went to Supreme Court where these types of disputes go, with government dispute. It went to Supreme Court. Judge said, read the contract. You can't do this. I've signed a few things in my lifetime that I didn't read well enough, and then it went to appeal, and then it went to the Common Council, and they issued a check. And I think this is a segue into Sarahana, and so we're stuck with it. It's a big number, $800,000, even in a $40 million budget, is a big chunk of change. And it speaks to, as I think when you first read it, I think what you call it, gross incompetence.
Yeah, I would say, I think it was a crappy contract.
Yeah. I didn't get it. Will you let go of this thing, Cal? So here we are. We're out $800,000, and this is government. I
Plus
think
all the expense of an operation that didn't work.
You got to wonder. One of the questions I didn't ask is, what do we do with the sludge now?
Yeah, exactly.
It's not going into cornfields. So anyway, as we segue to, we still got some time to talk about this in detail. The Central Hudson ongoing punishment of its saga, the punishment by Central Hudson, who's laying it all off to unnamed suppliers who are jacking up in an inflation. And we'll get to this in an inflationary period of our lives, is raising its rates like it was 1999. One of the and we'll talk about Assemblymember Cahill's efforts in this regard. One of the proposal, which doesn't seem to be getting much traction, is from Cahill's opponent, in the June 28th primary.
The infamous.
I wouldn't call her infamous yet. The Sarahana, how do you pronounce her last name?
Shrestha, I believe.
Shrestha, yeah. She out of the gate proposed what amounts to the nationalization of Central Hudson.
Well, she's a socialist, and they think that nationalization is the answer. However, if we bring her on the show, and I think it might be appropriate.
Yeah.
It's a big primary. I would ask her to bring with her evidence of any government where socialization worked.
Well, she'll tell you, and I'll tell you, because you probably in the back of your mind knew this. The New York State Power Authority, which is what she wants to send have the New York State Power Authority take ownership of Central Hudson. That's her proposal. So therefore, it's a state-run, nationalized, state-run operation. There are 4 or 5 utilities in New York State that the Power Authority operates.
And I believe that they're all hydroelectric power.
In the northern part of the state, yeah.
Yeah, and they're not exactly the best operation in the world. There was a proposal this week before the Common Council. I believe they are about to consider what's known as a community choice aggregation program, where
it's very early stages.
They pool their buying power, and they get everybody in the community to buy from one source, okay? And then they try and negotiate with that source to bring in the power for less than Central Hudson charges. Or right now, where we have freedom to pick whatever we want. A couple of interesting things about that. That local law, number 3, was passed last September.
I noted that.
Yeah,
this is April.
This is 7 months later, and
still working on it.
We're still now we're ready. We're getting ready for a request for proposals to fund an administrator. Okay, because we always have to, hey, we got family members that need jobs. Okay, so the first thing we got to do is how many folks can we put on the payroll for this one, and then once the administrator's on board, then we need a request for proposal to find a supplier. Okay. So this sounds to me like a very big deal, and we do have. I believe there's an environmental educator and sustainability coordinator.
Yeah.
That this would fit right into that. I would think, but she was quoted as saying, and this was kind of interesting, that if they pass this, you have to opt out of it. Every business and every person, every home in the city of Kingston is automatically in this buying group unless you specifically opt out. I don't know if you knew that or not.
I did.
That's a very that was kind of like in the fine print. All right, but here's my question. Okay, to me, this is a couple of phone calls. Okay, a couple of phone calls. The city of Poughkeepsie already has one of these.
Yeah, I think Newburgh does too.
The city of Beacon has one. The town of Marbletown, New Paltz, Saugerties, and Red Hook all have these. Now, here's what I don't understand. Why do you need a request for proposals? You pick up the phone, you call the town supervisor in Saugerties and say, okay, who are you guys buying your stuff from? Did you save any money? All right, great. Can you send me a copy of your request for proposal? I'll put out the same request. Nothing. We're going to hire. We got to get lawyers involved. It becomes a major Megillah when there are at least 6 places you can call to get all the information you need, and maybe you find out, you know what, there are no alternative sources out there. So we're going to go through this whole thing only to find out that maybe there are no savings to be had. I have no idea.
Well, there may be. In our household, we subscribe to I think it's called Clear Choice. and it's one of those solar things.
Yeah.
And they quoted us a price of 12 and a half cents a kilowatt.
Mm-hmm.
And I spoke to the representative. I didn't know how that compared to Central Hudson. And he said, Central Hudson will be charging 18 cents. Sign me up.
All right.
So there are, it can work, but like you say, it doesn't. It's government. It doesn't have to be this complicated.
Yeah, and here's the other problem. You can call Clear Choice or whoever they are, and say, I got a house. I'm going to use, a kilowatt for the whole year or whatever.
Whatever a kilowatt is.
Okay,
yeah.
fine. Oh yeah, we got solar panels on people's roofs. We can pump some of that.
Solar farms.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
How do they do an entire city? See, the problem that my good friends on the what I call the crazies, the environmental crazies, don't understand is this: we are a country and a world that is dependent on fossil fuels. You can't just say, okay, we're going to stop using fossil fuels now. This has to be a phased-in process. You have to, it takes time, it takes a lot of money, and to develop alternatives to fossil fuels.
How much time and how much money does it take?
A lot.
We've been talking about this through most of our lifetimes.
I understand.
And it ought to be here by now.
But let me explain it to you.
Okay, explain it to me.
The big problem is storage. Okay, because you only generate solar power when the sun's out. What do you do at night? You have to, the stuff that comes in during the day has to be stored. That's where we're having the problems with our battery technology and our battery capabilities to store that so that you can level it out. And by the way, when Texas Texas had that problem down there, it was because they decided to go to alternative sources of energy, mainly solar, and of course, the ice storms
ran out overnight.
Yeah, and they ran out, and they had no way to replenish it. So the problem is, and most people who are reasonable understand this, is that we need to develop this in a gradual manner. And one of the reasons that we are getting killed right now with the cost of energy is the alternative forms of energy have not been able to make up the difference between the fossil fuels that we used to produce and the fossil fuels we're currently producing. The United States right now is producing 4 million barrels a day less fossil fuels than we did at the end of 2020. 4 million barrels a day. We were the world's largest producer. We are no longer the world's largest producer. Now, they never created the capability to replace those 4 million barrels a day. That's why we have the shortages. Okay, maybe they produced enough solar and wind to do half. So what they should have done is only reduced our production by a half. They have balance in the marketplace. The minute government gets involved, they screw up the works, and that's exactly what's going on.
Why don't we, not to interrupt you guys, because you guys are having a great conversation, why don't we go to break real quick? We'll come back with birthdays and March
break time already.
All right.
Does that sound good?
Let's do it, baby.
All right, cool.
You're listening to Kingston Community Radio on WGHQ Kingston. On your radio at 920 AM and 92.5 FM, and also online at mykcr.org.
We are Lions. We bring hope where it's needed, support causes that matter, change lives, change communities, change the world. Visit lionsclubs.org to learn more.
At Central Hudson, safety is our highest priority. That's why we ask you to keep a clear path to electric and gas meters and eliminate all obstructions, including snow, ice, vegetation overgrowth, storage boxes, garbage, or any other kind of debris. Access to meters is important for safety inspections too, and failing to provide access can result in fines. For more information, visit the safety section of centralhudson.com.
This is the story of Daniel, who was born 2 months early. His lungs weren't ready. His heart wasn't ready. His parents could only hope that one day he would leave the hospital healthy, and they would all live happily ever after. Daniel's is just one of the more than 500,000 stories of babies born prematurely last year. You can help the March of Dimes stop premature birth and bring more babies home healthy. Learn how at marchofdimes.com. Working together for stronger, healthier babies.
Have you ever experienced a wish come true? For a child battling a critical illness, a wish come true can be a turning point. One song, one dance, one game, one adventure, one moment changes everything. Make-A-Wish needs your support to grant the wish of every eligible child. Visit wish.org now to help grant more life-changing wishes. Together, we can transform lives, one wish at a time.
On top of first-class care, you will never receive a bill. The only thing we had to worry about was just keeping Azalea comfortable. St. Jude saved her life.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
To battle is to fight, to struggle, to overcome, and ultimately for the Marine Corps, it means to win. There is no alternative. It's not just a statement of intent. It's a promise to our nation. A promise kept for more than 2 centuries. A promise of the Marines.
Long ago, you wouldn't think of galloping on a horse while doing calligraphy, and you wouldn't have attempted to ride your bike while typing a letter. Yet you think you can safely operate a multi-ton vehicle while texting? Behind the wheel is no place to multitask. If you want to BRB, drive now and text later. Lives depend on it.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org, a message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, Noise, and the Ad Council.
Introducing the YMCA. Sure, you know the Y for a swim or a game of hoops, but we're more than that. We're a cause. When you take a jump shot at the Y, someone else is getting job training. Practice yoga as a team practices her leadership skills. We give people of all ages, incomes, and backgrounds a chance to learn, grow, and thrive. So while you might think of the Y as the place for lifting weights, we're also about lifting entire communities. That's the Y. We're so much more. Visit ymca.net/more.
Hi, this is Jared Mans from the Spring Lake Fire Department, and I support Kingston Community Radio, and so should you.
This programming is brought to you by the Friends of Kevin Cahill. As a strong advocate of local broadcasting, Assemblymember Cahill urges you to support Kingston Community Radio with your time and donations. Your contributions keep KCR vital and on the air at FM 92.5, AM 920, and on the web at mykcr.org. Please join Assemblymember Cahill and send your gifts of $10, $25, or more to Kingston Community Radio, Post Office Box 4364, Kingston, New York 12402. Together, let's keep KCR alive.
Okay, we're back. And before we get to our next guest, March Gallagher, I think we got quite a few birthdays there, right, Mario?
Well, we have Friday, we got Saturday, and I believe we have a full house. We got Sunday, too.
We haven't had a couple birthdays in
Wow. Okay, so we have our guest in the studio, March Gallagher, the Ulster County Comptroller, and so we're going to put her to work. I mean, this is not going to be, there's no free lunch here today, March, so you've got Saturday.
All right.
You got Saturday, I've got Friday. So today, Friday, April 15th, we want to wish a happy birthday to Karen Smith from your friends at the Hurley Pearlers. So, Karen, I have good news for you. You are the only entrant. So it was a slam dunk. You were unanimously chosen to receive the famous cow pie from the Boyce Dairy Milk House. So, Karen, you may pick up, and by the way, happy birthday, you may pick up your cow pie at the Boyce Dairy Milk House at 62 O'Neill Street in Kingston. And that comes to you courtesy of the Boyce Dairy Milk House and the Kingston Community Radio team. All right, Marge.
Ready for Saturday? All right.
Yes,
We've got
ma'am.
a few Saturday folks, so it's very competitive. But first, I'm going to wish happy birthday to Barbara Genther from your friends at the Town of Ulster Senior Club. Happy birthday, Barbara. Next, happy birthday to Elaine Baum from your friends at the Hurley Pearlers. And then finally, happy birthday to Scott Salmons from his wife, children, and grandchildren. Happy birthday, Scott. Happy birthday, Elaine. Happy birthday, Barbara. And the winner is Scott Salmons. So you can pick up your cow pie, 62 O'Neill Street at Boyce's Dairy. Happy birthday, everybody.
And being the wise man I am, I gave March all the contested birthdays. So I have Sunday. Sunday, the 17th, and we have a birthday wish for Grace Milano. It says, please wish our godchild, Grace Milano, a happy birthday, and that is from Tricia and Charlie. And Grace, by the grace of God, you are the only entry. So congratulations, Grace, on winning the Boyce Dairy Milk House famous cow pie for Sunday. And again, you may pick that up at the Boyce Dairy Milk House. And I'm not sure how old you are, Grace. You are somebody's godchild. Grab an ice cream while you're there. It is delicious. Anyway, my favorite ice cream, by the way. And this comes to you courtesy of the Kingston Community Radio and the Boyce Dairy Milk House, and happy birthday to all. So, Yui, before we get into the subject at hand, which is our discussion with the comptroller, you had received some mail this week. And by the way, I want you to know that I received that.
I received 3 of them.
Yeah. So, and I think my wife got one. So,
my house, I should
they're
say.
going to Republicans as well. So the assemblyman is very, very concerned about the Central Hudson situation. What do you think?
I think this is brilliant. This flyer from and a great picture of Kevin. I'm not quite sure he's that good looking anymore, but it's a nice shot. He puts out a flyer to everybody, including Republicans and independents. Apparently, a mass mailing. How many voters in Ulster County have registered? About 120,000, March. It's a lot of people.
Thereabout.
Yeah, this is a monster mailing, and it basically asks people to complain to the assemblyman. There's a section here. Please explain the issues that you have with Central Hudson, billing, estimated reading, outage. I almost said outrageous. Outages and response. No bill received, or too much of a bill.
So there are a number you get to pick. It's
Yeah,
like
you can pick all. It's a menu, and then Cahill will assemble these complaints, and there's websites and how to contact people and so forth.
Is there one that says my Central Hudson bill is now higher than my mortgage? Is there one of those there?
You know, that may be the case with some of these.
It is for some people.
Particularly if the billing system backs you up 2 or 3 months.
Yeah.
And you're doomed. But he has found the pulse of the public on this. People are really upset. More than upset, they're frustrated and angry, and in some cases scared. We never took advantage of Central Hudson's billing system, which you can pay a portion of a bill every month, like a car
yeah,
payment.
Yeah.
Because we can handle the bill. Now we're looking at it. So anyway, you all got this anyway, and you can do what you want with it. But this will be an issue, I think, going right through the campaign.
Well, it's the only issue for his opponent. His opponent is a one horse pony. Her claim to fame is we need to somehow take over Central Hudson, right? I mean, that's her issue.
No, she has other parts of her platform, I think. So
there's some housing issues in it.
Yeah,
it's basically the DSA platform.
It is the DSA
Okay, it's
platform.
the DSA platform, but I think she's pushing back on him. This is the one that she's every time.
Well, she has to feel the pulse too. She's out there talking to people. She's a candidate. If she doesn't, she shouldn't be running.
Well, I think to a great extent this is a response to the fact that that's her major issue.
All right,
I agree with that.
Listen, we invited our comptroller here, and the only thing she's told us is who's going to get a cake over it, and she did it very well. But
I'll tell you who's going to get a cake in the county too while I'm at it.
Yeah. So let's talk about that.
I think they ought to use cream pies.
Oh, your face.
Anyway,
You guys want to talk about money? My favorite subject.
Money.
Taxes.
Show me the money. Yeah. Yeah, we want. Yeah, we do. We want to talk about your audit, which, unlike audits by previous, if not your own, tenure, has gained widespread public interest and comment and concern. If you want to, March, just to set it up, hit the highlights of your.
Sure, I can give a little overview on that. Yeah. And actually, I'm going to go back to when I first was elected and came into office. I log into our bank account and see that we're sitting on $60 million. Now, having come from, being the president and CEO of a private foundation of $80 million where we were invested in the market, to me that was shocking. We were sitting on $60 million and checking. But we need to have...
So this was several years ago.
This is several years ago. That was 2020. But, that number has grown tremendously over the last few years because we've had several substantial years of surplus. We got the ARPA funds. The legislature and executive really cut spending during COVID, so there was also a contraction of spending. In any case, we decided we should look at our own compliance with our investment policy. The investment policy was adopted in 2012. And what we found is that we're really not complying with the policy, meaning we are not reviewing our investments on a regular basis, we are not diversified in our investments, and we have all of this money sitting in a bank account in Greene County. Now, we estimated that over the course of 3 years, 2019 to the middle of 21, which is when we sort of ended the audit period, we could have earned an additional $650,000. But you know what? Now, that spread is growing even more because New York State has expanded the investment options for counties to align them with New York City's investment options. So there are a few more instruments that we could be in that return a much higher rate. The county moved $70 million to a higher interest paying checking account that pays 25 basis points, but we could be earning
0.25%.
That's right. We could be earning 45 basis points or more right now if we moved it to another type of vehicle. So I'm hoping that there's going to be more of a dialogue on this. I think the Commissioner of Finance has taken the position that, the policy, I can't move the money out of the Bank of Greene County because it says our money has to be in a depository institution in Ulster County. I call BS on that. The policy says we could be invested in treasuries. Treasuries are not in Ulster County. You know what I'm saying? That is a very narrow and limited approach to that interpretation of that policy. And look, if we don't like a policy or we think a policy is bad, we don't just live with it, we change it.
Yeah, so I have a couple of questions. I got questions. Okay.
No, I was just commenting on we can change it.
Yeah.
If you can change it.
As a matter of fact, it's within the purview, as I understand this, of the Commissioner of Finance to recommend changes.
Correct.
And they all right, so I want to go back just a bit. So what you're saying is that the policy we're operating from was established in
2012.
2012. Okay, so That's 10 years ago. We established this policy. Now, according to the information that we have, and I think you provided some of this, the Commissioner of Finance is supposed to submit a report on investments
Annually.
every year, annually. I went online.
There aren't any.
And I tried to find. I went to the, all through the Ulster County files, and the thing shows up, and you got 8 million reports and stuff, and I couldn't find anything on the investments. So, I don't want to get you in the middle of this, but just between us guys here, This is in I believe it's in the charter, correct? Or is it in the operating procedures?
It's really in the administrative code, I think.
The administrative code. Okay, so it's in the administrative code. Nobody pays any attention to the administrative code. I mean, you're the chairman of the legislature. Where's my buddy Dave? Come on, Dave. You've been letting this go. I love Dave, but
Everybody loved Dave.
yeah, but come on. And how about Ways and Means? Did nobody on Ways and Means say, by the way, where's our money invested?
Well, I think there's a reason for that. And I want to say, I think, it goes back to the prior administration as well, right? This was happening or not happening under the prior administration. But I think because the Bank of Greene County was providing us interest on a checking account, which is kind of at a good rate, at a decent rate, there was not really concern that we weren't earning, especially when we were living closer to the bone. Right now, we're ballooning, and we should be invested differently. But you're absolutely right. I mean, we weren't in compliance with the policy. Reports weren't being generated, and oversight wasn't happening really from the executive or the legislature.
So my question is this, okay? The Bank of Greene County, and by way of full disclosure, I have been an investor, has a surplus of about $1 billion.
Wow.
And they got 165 million of ours, so that we're about 16% of their surplus. Or their deposits. I'm sorry. They have I think about 1 or 1 billion in deposits. We're 15% of their deposits. What my question is there a mechanism in place to put this out to bid? I mean, we've got Rondout savings, we've got Ulster savings, we have Sawyer savings, we have a lot of hometown banks here.
We cannot be in the hometown banks. So there is some savings banks are not the same. They're not chartered under the same rules, and we have restrictions on which banks we could be in. We could be in M&T, we could be in TD, we could be in Bank of Greene County. But I don't think that and I'll have to come back to you on that, and I'm happy to follow up and send you an email on it.
In commercial banks.
Yeah, we're limited in what depository institutions we could be in, but we still should go to bid. When I was at the Community Foundation, we decided to move some of our money that we knew we needed in 6 to 9 to 12 months. I put out an RFP. I got, every bank in the Hudson Valley to give me, a rate on a CD, and they didn't know. We were just going to invest in every single one of them, but to make friends. But, it definitely was an improved service, and I think we should be looking at alternatives, especially on the investment side. We have a great relationship with Bank of Greene County. They've been good to us. They don't charge us fees. They're very helpful and supportive, but this is way beyond sort of our traditional $50-60 million in the bank.
It's about 165. Is that the figure you quoted?
Well, it was 170 when I was looking at it, and now it's around 165, yeah.
Yeah, and money's pouring in. I mean, the federal government sent us a pile of money.
Do we have that money?
We have half the ARPA money. The second half is coming in June, and we're going to start spending that money. I mean, the ARPA committee is almost done allocating that, and then you're going to start seeing that money go out the door, and we have to be prepared for that. But the investment options I'm talking about are liquid. Like, we could be out of them in 1 or 2 days. Okay. So
my question, I guess, is somebody going to start the process of complying with the administrative code? Are we going to get a report? Because I think this would have been handled a lot easier if somebody had handed the legislature the report, or this is a report on our investments, and now you can ask questions because you're asking educated questions. Trying to figure out where the money is it's got to be a world-class pain in the neck.
Right. So the financial policy, the investment policy, is a policy adopted by the legislature. When I came, I said, I want to see all the policies that affect finances in the county. It was a bear to try to gather them all together. These are things that were passed by resolution maybe a decade or more ago. They're not available to the public. I want to put them all together in a package and daylight them. Here's all the financial policies that govern what we do, on the finance side. People should have access to that. So I've been gathering them together. And I think you're right, Hugh. If people were reviewing stuff regularly, it would trigger questions, and we just haven't had that opportunity. So I'm hoping that we will. My office is working on a draft resolution that would tweak some of these things. Obviously, the commissioner did do a modicum of a report to the county executive, which basically looked at the CD interest rates for every other bank that we have accounts with and said, like, those are lower than Bank of Greene County. But that's not really what I'm talking about. I'm talking about really looking at the full spectrum of opportunity.
And especially now that the law changed in 2021.
And it's temporary. It's a temporary change. It only runs through the middle of 23. I think it'll be extended. And I think there's ways that we can address that in our policy just by saying, like, we can invest in vehicles that are allowable under general municipal law, so that if they expand it or contract it in the future, we're ready.
Yeah, they have a habit of the sales tax is temporary. They want, well, that's how they maintain power. Once they pass the law and they don't have to revisit it, then they could lose. They could lose their their advantage.
Sales tax is up 18% this year so far.
Marge, I'd like to touch on an aspect of your audits. They are revealing, and they're certainly useful. And obviously, it takes a lot of digging in what the chairman of the Ways and Means called a lot of buckets to find the money. Catalano couldn't find it, and he's a hawk when it comes to this stuff. He knows his stuff. He couldn't find it. And God's sakes, I could never find it. But I think it's who's held accountable here. You've got a finance director who by law, I'm not saying he's breaking the law, but he's not observing it. By law, is supposed to report to the elected officials of our community, who we vote for or against, the legislature and the executive. Well, he doesn't do that. And then we have the executive, who apparently didn't do much with it. And then we have the legislature, which was operating in the dark. Well, yeah, we're kind of aware of this stuff, but the Bert Golnick, the finance department handles that. It's one thing, I think, to point fingers and reveal these things, and they are important. The average citizen, I think, can resort to that. Not resort, can
rely on it.
Can relate to that.
Yeah.
Jesus, well, I got money thank God, I got a little nest egg in the bank, and they're paying one tenth of.
None of us are earning enough interest, and we're paying too much on inflation.
I get a statement that said we gave you $35 in interest last year.
Oh yeah, I get my checking account comes and I got 14 cents in interest.
Yeah,
we earned $3,300 since they moved the money. And that was like on 5 days. In 5 days.
All right. You're going to brag a little bit, but I think you set your policies, and you're also an elected official. But I think that it's not pointing fingers to point out and name names. I had to kind of pull Bert out of the dark to find out, well, who's responsible for this? And of course, you told me. Mm-hmm. I think it should be part of an audit to say who's responsible.
Well, we say by title who has the responsibilities.
Yeah, but by title, the average person doesn't never heard of
it. But here's my thing, and I feel strongly about this. The prior comptroller had a got ya kind of approach to his work, and I think that my goal is to make improvements for the taxpayers. So if that requires me finessing, what I'm saying in a way that is a little bit less punitive, then I want to do that. Meanwhile, by the way, I met with the county executive yesterday because I had offered him the opportunity to have a quote in my press release when I went out, and I shared with him the press release and the audit well before they went out, and he declined to participate because he thought the tone was unfriendly. And so I just, while on one hand, you might feel like I'm not naming names enough, on the other side, people are smarting because it is painful to learn that you're not doing something right. On the other hand, we audit certain departments or work with certain departments who have kind of a regular history of being audited by outside entities. I'm going to give you an example. Mike Iaposi from Department of Social Services. They have responded in the past to audits with, thank you for pointing this out. We're going to modify, make changes, goodbye. You know what I mean? Like there's a very, everything could always be done better, including my shop. So I'm taking back what you're saying to me and what other taxpayers are saying to me and taking that into consideration.
Well,
so
you did get a response. I mean, they moved, what, 70
But you know how I learned about it, Hugh? I got a one-sentence email that said, there is a new account code today, and it didn't name Bank of Greene County. There's a new account code, and it listed the account code in New World. I went on to Bank of Greene County, saw that it was Deposit Plus, saw that it was 25 basis points, saw that it was going to return more money, but I didn't get a phone call. I didn't even get an email that explained what was happening. And I wish we had, because I would have said, hey, there are alternatives that might pay more. Let's talk about something else. So we did get a response, and my goal is to make sure that we're making changes that, improve things for taxpayers. But I name by title, and we'll think about what you're saying. And I don't necessarily like to call one individual out because honestly, maybe this was something that got left by the wayside. But you had executive and legislative oversight that wasn't happening as well. And if people had been asking for that report, it would have been generated.
I'm surprised. This Richard Jarentine is really on top of these things.
Do you think this? Do you think the comptroller should be investing? You've got the staff.
I've been toying with that idea. Like, there are other counties where the comptroller is the primary investment officer, but in all honesty, in those counties, the comptroller also shares more responsibilities as treasurer. So it's not, it's not abundantly clear. I do think we need more of a committee oversight structure. We need to make some changes so that there's like regular oversight. Ways and Means is banging through, 50 or 100 resolutions. It's very hard to get a minute even to explain my audit to them. They don't really have the time to do investment review that way. I think there should be, more oversight from a separate committee, an investment committee. But I will say, just honestly, our finance operation is not modernized. We cut checks. We are still issuing paper pay stubs to every employee, and there's a lot of them, even if they get direct deposit. And we are cutting checks to vendors is costly. Estimated anywhere from like $1.50 a check to $75 a check when you take every potential expense into account. I don't think it's that much. Vendors say that, and I think that's bogus. But I do think it's $3 to $4 a check, and we should be looking at alternative ways to modernize our operations.
Ways and Means. Go ahead, Kat.
So is there a need maybe to, if Ways and Means is that busy, I can think of a couple of alternatives. So one of the things that I've always had a problem with is the fact that the legislature doesn't have, they have a very minimal staff. And some of this could be done. Like the Ways and Means Committee, maybe they need to have, even if it's on a part-time basis, an accountant or somebody.
We have 2 financial staff now. One of them is a CPA that works with Ways and Means. Okay. So they are so busy on many things, not just that. I'm just gonna jump in and say it. I know it's gonna make people mad, but what I think we should do. Right now, you have the legislature approving every contract that's over $50,000 or that bumps a contract over $50,000. They are spending a tremendous amount of time on a microscopic part of the finances of the county by debating these contracts. They approve the budget, and these contracts are within budget, so there's already been an approval. They need to move, my opinion, I think it would free them up to do more strategic thinking for the county operations and policy making if they we're able to move to a situation where there was a consent list of all the contracts. If a legislator was concerned about one, they could pull it out. But we should think about bumping that number up because they're spending so much time on something that's, $50,000 or $60,000, and we're a $350 million operation. So I know there's concerns about that. The legislature does not want to give up their oversight of those things, but if we could do it in a way that would free up their time, but still give them the ability to pull things off.
They really don't have oversight. Because when's the last time they even contested one of these?
Well, they ask questions about it, and I think they bring issues forward that they're hearing from their constituents. And you can see with the ARPA proposal, there are some things that the legislature brought forward that weren't really in the initial proposals that I think are good projects, good investments. So
it sounds like a catch-22 to me, that there are things that they need to do, but they don't have enough time to do them.
When that happens, you need to look at everything on your plate. I mean, I say this to the people who work for me, if you have too many things on your plate, you need to come to me and I'll help you prioritize that. You may have to let some things go. That's what I'm saying. Maybe contracts that are $60,000 shouldn't get the same level of review as contracts that are $3 million, which they are right now. They are. Yeah.
That sounds crazy.
Yeah. So I know that they're talking about going to a reduced size legislature.
And as far as them approving it in the budget, most of them don't even look at the budget.
And it's very hard, in all honesty, to really understand where a particular contract is in the budget. Just because you approve, certain types of spending in the budget for social services, you don't necessarily know that's going to result in a contract with Family of Woodstock.
Arch, let me, and Mario, let me just share, as I'm prone to do, an anecdote that may relate to this. I was attending a Ways and Means meeting. There was something on the agenda that was interesting. And I was sitting next to a new young reporter, and Danny Alfonso was in the chair. That was before he was chairman. And Alfonso was always very well prepared. He had done his homework. Rarely was a question raised that he didn't have a credible response. And so the reporter next to me said, and they were going through millions of dollars, around the table. And the reporter says, wow, these guys are really on top of stuff. They just approved $1 million for the nursing home to put a roof on or something. I said, wait till they get to something they understand. And coincidentally, it was a petty cash fund for $100 at the infirmary. Now, you were chairman of that committee, weren't you, back in your tenure?
Yes, I was.
And they debated that for half an hour.
Right.
They approved $1 million. Yeah, okay, So I think that's what you speak to.
Now, the legislature, from what I can see, because I go to a lot of their meetings, a lot of the committee meetings, they're working hard. I mean, I see good attendance. I know Elliot got into that. I would never get into that. But I see good attendance. I see long meetings with lots of debate. And so I think people are really thinking about it. They're trying to do their research and come to these meetings. But it's a lot of time spent on things that maybe are not so impactful, are not such a huge percentage of the budget. So, we have changes we need to make. That's it.
Let me ask a question. The exec is advertising, I believe it was in today's paper or it was an article.
Oh, yeah, he's looking for volunteers.
Volunteers for the Charter Commission.
Which he has delayed for quite a while.
Yeah, it's supposed to be. Yeah. All right. So anyway, if now that you are have seen and are familiar with the inner workings of this government, just from your perspective and your area of expertise, what kind of changes would you like to see in this charter? Because I always blame everything on the charter because that's the document that was put forth, and if you never amend it, and it's just like anything else. You start a process, you realize until you get into the process, you really never realize how things are going to come together and how they're going to work. It all sounds good on paper, but maybe it's not working. What do we need to do from your perspective? With this with the charter? What do we have to bring forth before the
I think the charter should speak to the investment officer function. It doesn't right now. It shouldn't just be in the administrative code, so I would like to see that. I have a growing list of charter asks, mostly with regard to my own office. So, for example, we are required to prepare an annual report and risk assessment, and I think when the charter was being created, people were thinking, oh, risk assessment is part of auditing, and that's good, and you should do it every year. Yes, that's true, but the industry, the internal audit industry or practice has really moved to continuous risk assessment. You don't just do it once a year. The other thing is you don't necessarily publish your findings of risk assessment. Whoa, we have a really huge risk in this area. No. That's for internal auditors to know. It might direct our function. So I have a couple sections there where I'd really like to see changes. I also think that you've seen with the RRA that we've had a lot of back and forth over our audit authority, over these LDCs, and especially where where they are a component unit of Ulster County government. The comptroller should have audit authority, and if it has the potential to affect taxpayers, we should have audit authority. So I'd like to see that change. We have a lot of other LDCs out there doing stuff. UCEDA, right?
Yeah.
What is that?
Ulster County Economic Development Alliance, making decisions over the largest disposition of assets in county history, maybe, if you consider Tech City worth more than the nursing home. They're probably on par. The Ulster County Housing Development Corporation, the IDA, the CRC, the UCRRA. So I would really like to see more oversight, clearly laid out, so we don't have to waste, this litigation with the RRA, they spent $75,000 suing us. We spent $15,000 defending ourselves, and it was a tremendous waste of taxpayer money. So,
and then they spent.
All right, hold on a second. Why did it cost your office $15,000 when you're an attorney? Was this a specialized field that you didn't practice?
I hired Whiteman, Osterman, and Hannah. I was like, yo, you're suing me? I'm getting the top people in the state to represent us. But I think because I'm an attorney, I was able to do a lot of front work. So I was able to prepare for them, like, here is the specific section of this contract that you want to look at. But honestly, I think they were being taken for a ride, and I don't know whether it's in-house counsel, Ken Gilligan, who misled them, or whether it was outside counsel, but even telling them there was a remote possibility that they could win when they signed a contract saying we give the county audit authority over terms of the contract. It's like
slam dunk.
I don't, that was not a winnable case.
Sludge.
Not a winnable case. So, I think they got taken for a ride. It's unfortunate. It was a waste of money. We're almost done with our audit there. We had a site visit Monday. I didn't go after the very unceremonious comments that were in the newspaper. I decided to just kind of let it die. And my staff went on the site visit. We're kind of writing up our findings right now. I mean, our goal from the beginning is just like recommend a few improvements around this particular part of the operation, and it's been blown into something much larger. But I think it does speak to a charter issue, which is like, taxpayers are on the hook for these entities.
Yeah.
You might want to have somebody who can look at their books.
I'm always in favor of
sunshine,
more oversight, especially when it comes to our money. All right, and no one should be opposed to it, because you need to account. And you can see what has happened when there was an oversight. It's crazy. Now, do you need more staff?
I could always use another set of helping hands. Certainly, if we had more staff, I think we more than pay for ourselves. Comptroller Auerbach didn't do this, but I have been able to document like real savings or revenue opportunities, both recommended and implemented, that show that we more than pay for ourselves in terms of our work and bringing money back to the county. So, there was functionality taken out of my office on the accounts payable side and moved down to finance right at the beginning of Elliot Auerbach's tenure. That was a charter change. Maybe it would make sense to bring those people back in. But, we're just at our full staff now for the first time since I took office. So we're just sort of getting our feet.
Hiring or?
No, we didn't. I had a vacancy when the pandemic started that I hadn't filled yet, and it didn't make sense to fill it because I didn't know where we were going. Yeah. And then we kept that line out of the budget for the 2021 budget because we just didn't know what the finances would be. It was funded in 22, so we were able to hire, and we got a great auditor from who has 20 years experience auditing in state agencies, and yeah, add another CPA to the team. So, I don't want to be here telling you we necessarily need more staff. What I am going to say is if you're doing the internal audit function correctly, you more than pay for yourself.
Is there a number attached to that?
What, to add more staff?
No. What's your turning?
It's in our annual report. I think it's $3 million. It's like $3 million and change actual and like $10 million proposed, because we came out and made recommendations that were never implemented, which I understand. We recommended furloughing every county employee that earned under a certain figure at the very beginning of the pandemic, because they would have made more on federal unemployment insurance and it would have shifted the cost. So that was a savings that never got implemented. I understand why the county didn't want to do it. We recommended adding a local mortgage recording tax and transfer tax. That was not implemented. So those are the things
So you're going to run in what, 2 years? When are you up?
I just started a 4-year term.
Okay, so in 3 or 4 years, so you can put out a campaign bumper sticker that says, "I saved the county $3 million."
I could say that today.
All right.
But let me also say, some of those numbers are based on what other people have done, based on audits that began under Comptroller Auerbach. So it's really a function of the office. I can't really say it's all me. It's having a great team. And we have a great team there. I mean, I just feel like, it's funny because I hear other people complain about working with CSEA staff. I have found just like smart, really sharp, really committed, dedicated CSEA staff in our office.
This is a semi-serious question, but it just popped into my mind. You're in politics. You're a politician. You run for political office. You're a politician. I don't mean that in a pejorative way. And politicians are typically ambitious, and that crosses most platforms of politicians. Is there a glass ceiling? I love this expression. Is there a glass ceiling, literally, between your office on the 5th floor and the county executive's office on the 6th floor, which is to say, Comptroller, do you have? I know you got 3 or 4 years 3 years to go on your term, more than 3. People talk about you as maybe even overqualified to be a county executive. You're still mid-career, as it were.
I'm older than I look, I think, because everybody's always like, "Wow, really? I'm 53." Well, so maybe it's mid-career. I don't know.
So are we.
We're just getting started.
Yeah. So what's what do you?
What's the plan?
Yeah.
I don't have a specific plan. I mean, I'm going to look at my options as they unfold going forward. I really don't. I mean, I've had people ask me like crazy, ridiculous things like, am I going to primary Pat Ryan? I can tell you right now, absolutely not. I am not I'm not a millennial. I'm Gen X. And I think, look, there's things where I think we could improve services or operations, but I think Pat Ryan is doing a decent job in that seat, and I'm certainly not going to challenge a sitting competent Democrat. And I think people like Pat are the future of the party. He's a young, progressive. Yeah, he's a young, progressive military, came from the private sector. If that's not the future of the Democratic Party, I don't know what is. So I don't, if that seat were to open, that's a different thing. I'd have to look at what's the best thing for the county and my family at the time. But Hugh, I could be happy in a number of places. Like, I really enjoyed working in the nonprofit sector. My husband owns 2 businesses. We're desperate for a manager at the Saugerties bookstore right now. That would be a fun job.
That's a great place.
Thank you. And I'll tell you my secret passion that's really nerdy. I'm a shareholder activist, and New York State's Common Retirement Fund is the 3rd largest pension fund in the country. And when they weigh in on an environmental social governance issue for corporate America, it makes a huge difference. And there is somebody sitting in the state controller's office, like checking the boxes and reviewing those and making decisions about what they want to push for. I love that. Like, I could be happy sitting at OSC, like working for the pension fund. So there's a lot of different things. I don't feel drawn to one thing or another. I have to say, I love public service, and I love people. I don't mind running for office, but the vitriol and the negativity, I literally have received death threats in this job. And granted, it was bogus, and that person's been committed to a psychiatric institution now, but that's a huge burden. And I don't know that it's one I want to drag my family through for the rest of my life. So, I mean, I love what I do, and I love meeting with people and getting to know people in our community. But, like, do you want, that is a lot of extra. Yeah.
Baggage.
Yeah.
You've served with or under two county executives. How would you compare the two of them from what you've from?
One of the things that I wish that the current county executive knew, and I know he kind of knows it, but he doesn't really know it, is just how messed up county government was when Mike Hine came in. Because
when he came in.
Yeah.
In 2009.
When he came in 2009. And I think, you can look at, say, something like our contract approval process, all the way from contract management in the legislative office, in the county attorney's office, all the way through legislative approval, and say, like, it's a mess, it could be better. But we didn't have a contract management process. We didn't have a standard county contract template. We would literally just sign the vendor's contract. So that's just one example. I just think that, we've been on a continuous improvement path, and I think the current county executive doesn't really appreciate how messed up it was. Like, he can look at what was left over from Hine and be critical of it, but what Hine took over was.
Well, he formed a new government.
Exactly. So it was
He
really.
was also the county administrator.
He was the county administrator. He was there. He was there. Yeah,
he was fixing
he
his
had
own
some
problems.
responsibility. Yeah, exactly. He was fixing his own problems.
Well, he lived with that. He had to.
So, I think that, and it's also really hard to compare a COVID administration to a non-COVID administration, but I will say I wish that we had an Adele Ryder type person sitting with Pat, because I think some of the relationship building that she really brought to bear for Mike Hine isn't happening or hasn't happened in the same way. And part of that's COVID, and part of it's just coming in new. You don't necessarily know all the players, but, for example, like, having a press conference and leaving out certain people who should be there. And I'm not even talking about myself, I'm talking about on the legislative side. It just smooths things over. So I would say.
He's got a chief of staff, doesn't he? What's that?
Yeah, but Kayleen, she's great, but she's Kayleen Scaley.
I don't know who that is.
No, the guy that's calling all the shots there. Who's the?
Oh, Milgram?
No, your buddy there.
Milgram's gone. Milgram's not in the executive's office.
No, we'll get to that in a minute. Torres.
Yeah.
Well, there is no chief of staff per se.
Yeah, but Torres calls all the shots.
Yeah, well, I don't know about calling the shots. He announces some of the shots. Yeah, you're right. He's what
he's
Durantine under Arbach.
Yeah.
Don't step on my lines. He was the political operative that Durantine punished.
I remember.
Through Mike.
I remember. I called Dan and I said, Dan, get out of the county building. Find a job somewhere else immediately.
We were, in that question, which you perceive the intent of that original question, I'm not sure you really answered it, but there was a sort of difference in culture between these two administrations. I mean, I think, and I've written this many times, I think Mike ruled through fear and intimidation through Adele, and we were all familiar with that. You were the only person that I can remember upon leaving the administration who had anything slightly negative, and apparently that's your nature, which is fine, to say.
They were not happy with me.
But
it was true.
It was a great line. He's not as thin-skinned as he used to be.
It's true.
That's what I was going for. I mean, these are the people at the top, and the top is, I think, different. I think it's better, quite frankly. It was kind of scary at times. I mean, this guy would go after people with a vengeance, including media.
Well, that is one thing that I find different. I do feel like I can bring Pat Ryan something, and he might not like it, and maybe it's upsetting, but we can move past it, and a week or two later, he's ready to work on something new. He doesn't hold that kind of stuff for a long term, and I just feel like that does help move things along, where you can bring him the next thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, we might disagree on this, but now next week we need to work on something else, and I really appreciate that about him. And we, he and I sit down every couple of weeks to just have a face-to-face every 2 weeks, and I think that's been really important, just so I can flag these things.
I actually think he's the moderation in that office. I think some of his political people are a little
aggressive,
a little more aggressive, but I think that knowing him for many years, I think that his background, West Point, military, he brings a whole different perspective to the table when you're dealing with someone with that background, and it's much easier, I think, for him, because of his training, to
handle those slings and arrows. Yeah, I think that's true.
Let's move to another subject, if I may.
I've survived 49 minutes. So
yeah, we're in the home stretch now. National on the national scene, I don't happen to believe, I haven't bought into this yet, that Democrats, to be specific, are in serious jeopardy of losing both houses, and if not losing.
You do believe, or you do not?
No,
believe?
I don't
okay.
yet. Because I think it's a lot of it's Republican propaganda that is repeated and repeated and repeated and becomes a mantra. And Mario will disagree with me. I mean, the state of the country is in, so you get around inflation and the rest of it. What happened? Do you see it that way? Do you see the Democratic Party per se and all candidates up and down the line threatened? Which is to say, what happens
the Democratic Party
Delgado
drives me crazy in the sense that we cannot get out of our own way and explain anything good that we've done well. So we don't.
It's a message.
We are terrible at explaining the good things that we've gotten done.
Tell me about these good things. What good things?
Yeah, she will.
What good things? Let me see. Inflation, 8.5%.
It's global. Just saying. Global.
Yeah,
so
they're
you can say it's Biden. It's global.
We are world leaders. Don't forget that.
No, I'm really happy. I'll tell you what the things I'm happy about. The infrastructure bill, I love infrastructure. I always have. I think it's a tremendous place that we should always be considering investing, and we finally got that done. I think that although we dumped a lot of money into the
bipartisan.
Good. Bipartisan is the answer.
The point is everybody wants to spend money. Republicans, Democrats, they're all the same.
Well, the deficit is down, Mario, under Biden compared to where we were. So, you can say tax and spend, but the truth of the matter is we're doing a better job on the spending side, I feel. But I do feel like the Democrats are not necessarily good at championing their own successes, and I think we shy away from taking credit from places that we should, and that's unfortunate.
It's good.
Yeah, go ahead.
But Hugh, I am nervous about losing the House and the Senate. I don't like the obstruction in Washington. I don't the refusal to pass along candidates or bring them to fruition in terms of confirmation, I think is ridiculous. I think we should be engaging in that. And the whole idea that I'm just going to fight what you're doing because I don't like the letter attached to your name, I don't support that kind of governance, period. Local, state, national. I think that's a mistake. We need to be working together. And I think compromise is going to get us better policy. So I'm nervous about the future, and I'm frustrated at times by my own party. I mean, this thing with Benjamin and the campaign finance, like, really? You're going to sell your soul for $50,000? And Governor Hochul not unveiling that when there was chatter, and him being able to say, well, she didn't ask me if I was under federal investigation. Like, oh, great, every time I hire somebody, I'm going to, by the way, Mario, I'm going to hire you for this job, but are you under federal investigation?
By the way, oh, yeah.
Okay. So that's ridiculous. Her vetting process was very, very weak. I can't understand that. It's very concerning. Very concerning.
Is it a reflection on her administration? I mean, she's up for election, too.
And, I feel like she's done a decent job in that role. I think that was a tough spot to step into at a difficult time. And especially with COVID and all the changes happening, I'm not dissatisfied with her leadership. There's parts of the budget I don't like, that I wanted different outcomes, but I think she's done a good job. Her vetting team did not do a good job. And if that were me, I'd be like, bye-bye. Exactly.
So
that's good.
I heard an interesting
we got about 5 minutes.
Perspective on this next election. And it really, to me, it hit home, okay? And what this, and it was very interesting because it was a Democratic strategist who was doing this, and his opinion was that this is going to be a very difficult election for the Democrats because they're going to lose suburban moms. And part of it is essentially what his opinion
Is this
was,
sex education?
that they have separated parents from their children and their children's education. And that is going to be a very major...
Do you have children in school now?
I have a 17-year-old.
So I read to you earlier.
My others are in college.
We didn't do it on the air, but I read to you the resources that were provided to the New Jersey teachers about how to educate a first grader about gender identity. Now, listen, I'll line up every Democratic woman in this county and tell her that in the first grade, our teachers are going to discuss with you. You may feel like a boy, but somebody may tell you you have body parts that belong to girls, and
vice versa.
And they want to talk to 6-year-olds.
Full disclosure, I have a trans child.
I don't
trans
care.
son.
I don't have an issue with
No,
that.
the issue is when you.
I don't think moms are going to come out on that issue. You think so? I think what moms are going to come out on is the fact that we are losing control of our bodies. And if you tell me that I can't have an abortion after the first 6 weeks when I didn't even know I was pregnant, you're telling me that I literally have to carry a child to term that I didn't want, and in some states, whether I was raped or it was incest, is ridiculous. And I think women are going to come out in droves for that reason, because we recognize that who goes on the Supreme Court really matters, and what's happening in these states really matters. I mean, things are off the hook. Like, there are entire states where just don't live there now.
I understand. But you know what? The people in that state elected those people. And
gerrymandered to heck.
In every state. In every
you mean
state.
like New York, where 24 of the 26 districts now are completely Democratic? And we're not going to have any competitive races? There's 0 competitive races in New York State right now?
I mean, I'm not saying New York State's any better, but I don't support gerrymandering. I do think the rural vote, especially on the federal level, has an outsized amount of control over policy compared to the millions and millions and millions of people who live in urban areas right now because of the Senate, the way it's set up.
Well, let's get back to his central question. We can talk about abortion and gerrymandering all day long.
Yes,
But
we could.
You're a mother. I'm a father. And we all have children.
Grandfather.
Would you want your children, your 6-year-old children?
I'd have to see the materials, Hugh. I don't really know. I do think that, norms are changing on this topic.
Let me ask you a question. Is that a subject for a parent to discuss with their child or a teacher to discuss with their child?
It depends on the materials. It depends on the materials. I can't really, it does for me. It does for me.
I didn't talk about sex with my sons until they were 23.
Well, then you waited too long, Hugh. Absolutely. I'm like, oh, there's condoms in the bathroom.
Waited too long to educate him.
Well, I will just say this. I mean, my child was over 18 when they made their decision, and I would much rather be the mother of a living child of a different gender than somebody who feels so upset that they consider taking their own life. But I can't speak to materials I haven't seen. I feel like you're putting me on the spot to answer to something that I haven't seen that I don't know about.
I didn't ask you anything about the material. What I said to you
is it okay for?
It's the role of the parent or the teacher.
Well, I think it's the role of the teacher to definitely let kids know that they don't have to accept touches from other adults that make them uncomfortable. And does that fall in the category of what you're talking about?
No.
But we haven't done that, and in fact, we've had just a tremendous amount of child sexual abuse by basically approved organizations like the Boy Scouts because we haven't been talking about these things.
Catholic Church. All right, we're going to wrap up here. March, thank you again for coming on.
All right, anytime you want to.
Is this your second time here?
Yeah, but you only had me half an hour last time, I think. Oh, no, maybe it was a little
No, we
longer.
already promised you
Anytime you
half
want to
hour.
talk about, money or,
That's all we
you
wanna
know,
talk about.
kindergarten,
Our money.
sex ed.
Our money, how it's being spent.
Thank
Yeah.
you guys so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, and in conclusion, I'd like to say I am very appreciative of your willingness to come on. We wish that some of the other Democratic elected officials would come and speak to us. We're not that, I don't think.
We don't bite. We bite anybody.
You're a solid Democrat. You
Sure.
always make sure that I behave myself. I mean,
I had my 10th anniversary last year.
Thanks for having me on, you guys. I appreciate it. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, Maxwell, take us
All right,
home.
well, good job, guys. Everyone have a great weekend and happy Easter.
Happy Easter, happy Passover.
That's right, happy Passover as well. Take care, everyone.